Hi, everyone. Okay, so let me give you the 5-second punchline. I quite like knowing the end of the story. Who wants to rush to the end and see how it works out, and then you can relax and just watch the rest of it from the beginning? No. Do you know, there are some people go, no, I don't want to know what the end is. The bottom line is I sit here with a cardiac pacemaker in my chest, and it was very unexpected. And it's a neurological condition, and it's not a cardiac condition, i.e. my heart is actually perfect, except that, if you cook with gas and you try to get it started, that little node inside my top chamber doesn't work. And that sends a message that tells the heart to pump, actually do something, like stay alive. And I have had 6 near-death experiences over the last couple of years. I actually have been completely unconscious and what they call clinically dead, my heart having stopped for over 10 seconds, flatlined. And what I can tell you is when I've listened to other accounts of near-death experiences since then, golly gosh, they sound exactly the same. And, I would tell all of the specialists in each one of these situations what I had experienced. And I saw most of these emergency doctors or these nurses or these cardiac specialists or neurologists. I would see just these blank expressions. It's almost like they give no weight. They must have heard it all before. They must have heard it 100 times. It must be like they're hearing the same story again and again and again. And it would make me wonder, how could they possibly not believe in something as spiritual and magnificent and as divine as our connection to a force that's actually much greater than us? I have a perspective that we live here on planet Earth as human beings, real people with real lives, and we have real circumstances and situations to deal with. And it's taken me a long time. So it wasn't I had an immediate aha, and then it's taken me a long time to actually come to peace with this condition that I have, which affects my autonomic nervous system, is actually a gift. And for me, is it a gift from God, or is it a gift from my angels or my higher self, or that other than conscious aspect of me? I think all of the above. Now, what does that mean for you? Had I not been a regular practitioner, had I not been committed and devoted to viewing positive prime sessions, I wouldn't be alive. And if we don't want to go that far, because that's a pretty huge statement, I don't think that I would be living without permanent and irreversible damage to my brain and my kidneys and so forth. And I developed what is positive prime technology. It's, for me, the experience of viewing 1,000 flashcards flowing past your eyes. Most people don't really appreciate nor understand what that really is. It's a bunch of pretty pictures, looks like a fancy slideshow. What's that really doing? I'm so excited because we've just had a beautiful connection with one of the world's leading brain-computer interface researchers, a beautiful man, Dr. Avinash, at the University of Technology, Sydney, which we call UTS. It's very similar to MIT in Massachusetts. We've just agreed to do the first phase of some research with participants tracking their eyes, skin conductance, heart rate variability, and EEGs, watching a positive prime session so that we can prove out our hypothesis, which is when you view a positive prime session, it is a mental and emotional therapeutic treatment. So let me go back a couple of steps. I graduated from business school. I'm a bright young thing. I'm ambitious. I'm dynamic. I'd done all the Anthony Robbins, been to UPW in Switzerland, Unleash the Power Within. Oh, I loved it so much. I went to another Unleash the Power Within weekend in London, in Sydney. I went and signed up for the higher level programs. I went to Life Mastery University. I wanted to be a Tony Robbins coach, but I was a management consultant at the time, and I specialized in mergers and acquisitions in the corporate world. And We specialized in particular in transformations in large multinational corporations. And so I was really, Armani suit wearing, Gucci shoes wearing, first class flying, corporate A-type personality. I didn't really like myself though. And I actually didn't really like the life. Everybody else thought it was glamorous. And I was just exhausted beyond comprehension. And I actually decided I wanted to take what's called a sabbatical, a break. And instead of going back and studying something that related to change management consulting, I actually went back and qualified as an osteopath, an exercise physiologist. And I ended up with an idea that popped into my head. And I am the inventor of hot stone massage. I launched the brand called Lithos Therapy. And when I say that, people go, what, really? Yeah, no, really. The thousands or millions of images you see the world over with stones on people's backs in massages, I actually literally invented that treatment. And I trained over 5,000 therapists, including Ayurvedic doctors in the Himalayas and all sorts of amazing, you name it, I've been there, whether it was the most exquisite health retreats in Europe or the Middle East or Asia or rehab hospitals in New Zealand. And I actually wrote the subject that then got approved for insurance purposes. And it's taught at places like the Australasian College of Natural Therapies. Now, when I created it, it was called Lithos Therapy. It wasn't called hot stone massage. It wasn't until I was speaking at an International Spa Association conference about 20 years ago that the treatment that I was doing was filmed, and people thought that I was using river stones. And the next thing you know, there is this thing called stone massage with these like river stones heated in like rice cookers. And that was never the intention of this therapeutic treatment that I'd created. And so, yes, I'm a classic inventor and an entrepreneur. Well, I created Positive Prime for a couple of reasons. One, this is what I've noticed. Most people who lie down on a massage table or go to a spa or health retreat, most of them are dealing with issues that are of a financial nature or issues in their relationships. And very, very, very rarely are they going there because they have an issue with their health that isn't related to an issue with their finances or their relationships, right? Sometimes it's actually the relationship with themselves because they've been traumatized. So it's not necessarily just they've got problems in a romantic relationship or problems, siblings fighting or parents fighting with, it's not usually a family problem. It's usually something's causing one of us to fight with ourselves. We're at battle with ourselves. And what I was noticing because of that journey was that we are influenced by the environment that we exist in. There's a lot of really great science around this. Who here has heard of a movie called What the Bleep Do We Know, knows about Masaru Emoto and water crystals, and understands a little bit about quantum physics? Yes, no, yes, no. Yeah? Okay, great. All right. So when that movie first came out, I was the first distributor of that movie. I actually got the rights to distribute it. And so I sold it as an actual product. It was a DVD in one of those, cassette tape, and we literally sold, thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands to massage therapists and chiropractors and beauty therapists and remedial, it just was extraordinary how quickly that flooded the spa industry or the health and wellness industry. And I met Masaru Emoto and I did a very special workshop with him. And it's a long time ago. It's like 15 years ago. And so what Positive Prime does is you sit in front of it and it does two things in particular that make you a manifestation master. Masterful at manifestation in a really magical and majestic way. So what happens if you believe in Deepak Chopra's guidance around we manifest in the gap? When we are actually having a fleeting thought and it's in between, it's in the space between two thoughts, it's in the gap. Who has heard of Deepak Chopra or other people who might be parroting Deepak Chopra talk about manifesting in the gap? You may have heard of these other phrases like you need to be in non-attachment. You can't be attached to an outcome. If you're attached to an outcome, you're squeezing the potential out of it. Have you heard that? You have to be in surrendering and letting go. I can't see any real nods. Yeah? Okay, you're following. Yep. So what Positive Prime does is it allows you to upload photographs that are of your goals. Maybe you want to go and find images of people you want to work with, people that you want to meet one day, people that inspire you. You might want to upload photographs of your bucket list. And when you see those photographs that are personal to you, meaningful and significant to you, flash past you, flow quickly, you can't really grab onto it. And what's happening is that because you're in this state called a positive prime state, you're actually connected to your other than consciousness, and you're planting seeds in your other than consciousness, and you will find that the circumstances, situation, and people that need to align for the resources to actually be reorganized for you to actually achieve what it is that you want to achieve will actually fall into place. And so a lot of people effort towards accomplishing something, and what they understand intellectually, but a lot of people don't apply it, and a lot of people don't even know how. How do you get so completely in the, I've decided that this is what I want, I'm going to be disciplined about doing my daily actions to get it. Oh, and by the way, I can't be attached to the outcome. It's like this dichotomy and this difficulty that we as human beings, we don't really cope with because we're rational, logical beings. That's how we've been conditioned. And so we think, yes, if I take all these steps, I'm going to reach my goal. But actually, if you're not in a state of surrender and letting go, the actual pieces of the puzzle that are required for you to be able to achieve that with grace and ease and speed, they can't possibly come into play unless you're in the gap when you're thinking about your goals. I know that all of you kind of know this because we've thought of someone and then voila, we bump into them, or we hear from them, or we pick up the phone and we connect with them. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? Or you think of something and it was such a fleeting thought, but later it actually comes to be. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? Yeah. With positive prime, you actually can command that gift. It's magic. I'm not joking. And you do it by viewing positive prime sessions at speed with all of your personal images that are uploaded. And I actually mentioned something really specific about being in a positively primed state. When you are in a positively primed state of being, you are at vibrational alignment to your highest and best good. So in the positive prime experience, and you have all been gifted, so tell me you've at least logged in and you've looked at it and you've like, what is this? I don't really understand what. It's a bunch of pretty pictures in a slideshow. Come on, tell me the truth. Who's there? Right? Okay, so there are 800 images and there are 200 statements to every single session. There's hundreds of sessions. So the statements are the wisdom, the guidance, the suggestions, the mantras, the affirmations, the incantations of an extraordinary number of really world-class coaches. You can imagine they're sitting here on your shoulder and they're actually literally sharing or infusing you with that incredible energy, right? Now, there are certain types of photographs and there is a certain number of those types of photographs. I'll give you an example of just one. In it, there's actually a formula that has 17 aspects in it. One of them is that there are smiles. There's actually a scientific classification. It's called a Duchenne smile. We have a certain number of Duchenne smiles that are presented to you. You view these, and interestingly enough, the retina in your eyes processes that photograph at lightning fast speed, milliseconds in pre-conscious processing. And the retina in your eyes sends messages to your mirror neurons, and your mirror neurons actually, they process this message that says, oh, I think him smiling. Your brain actually literally thinks that you're smiling, and all you're doing is looking at a photograph of a Duchenne smile. Right? Now, because your brain thinks that you're smiling, it sends messages to your endocrine system, and hormonally you start to produce more serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin, other neurotransmitters and endorphins. It raises your energy levels, and vibrationally you tap into this state. It's called the positively primed state. Other people call it something similar. Sean Eagle, one of my colleagues, you can go and Google him, Sean, Shawn, Achor. In fact, I'll put a link into the chat for you. Very famous TED talk. He calls it the happiness advantage. What actually we know is that your brain functions in a completely different way. So your mind works differently. You actually have access. There's areas in your brain that it's almost like a theatrical thunderstorm, tropical thunderstorm. These particular areas in your brain that are responsible for precise decision-making or creativity or resourcefulness, they actually literally have a lot more activity and they come alive. And so you're actually in a state when you're seeing your personal photos flash past you, you're manifesting in the gap, and there's one other aspect that I'm going to tell you is super, 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 super interesting. You might already know this. Considering you're at this particular level, we don't act out of congruence with our identity. Who knows that? We do not act out of congruence with our identity. We never do. And if we stray for a millisecond, we actually bring ourselves back into place. It's the truth, right? What do I mean by that? Let's just say in my identity, I think that I'm kind. When I do something that's unkind, whether that's provoked or whether, there's a reason that's valid in my logical mind, I then overcompensate and do more kind things as a result. Do you know what I'm talking about when I'm saying there are self-fulfilling prophecies that are about our identity? So what I can share with you is, if you upload photographs of yourself into positive prime sessions that are on subjects or topics of how you want to be, but you're not there yet, your brain will actually kind of bring into place so that there is congruence. There's actually the opposite of what we call cognitive dissonance. Most people, they want to be a millionaire, or maybe even better than that, they want to be someone like me who is actually creating $1 billion idea, which is not something I say lightly. And I don't say it to impress you, but to impress upon you. You can't possibly be the kind of person who has $1 billion idea, $1 billion idea it's actually will probably impact 1 billion people too. But anyway, you can't possibly be that kind of person and have that kind of influence and be humble enough and execute with excellence with a team of people unless your identity is I'm a billionaire. Because you will not behave in ways consistently and persistently enough in order to bring that about, because it's not part of your identity. And so the real magic of Positive Prime is the way that we have people upload, we suggest, and I'm suggesting to all of you, upload photographs of anything that attaches your identity to the subjects. Now that is, and I'll give you some examples, photographs of your dogs, photographs of your siblings, photographs of your children, photographs of your colleagues, photographs of you, right? Some people don't like looking at photographs of themselves because they don't think that they're photogenic enough. When you see a photograph of yourself, see the essence of you that is this beautiful child of God, right? Try not to see the physical you, see the potential in you, see the possibilities for you when you see yourself. And what I can assure you of is that unless you view Positive Prime sessions and this particular part of the functionality, you can't wrap your identity around enough of the content to create enough of the transformation. I'll break this down for you. So the player that you're viewing a Positive Prime session is not a video. It's not an MP4 file. It's not a video. It's actually inside a proprietary player, and it's a series of images that are, each and every single one of them are designed to do something very specific, like the Duchenne smiles, including all the pictures of the green tree canopy and the pictures of, different kinds of physical movements, pictures of pro-social behavior, pictures of connection. I could go on and on and on. Every single time you press play, the entire group reshuffles and it's in a different order the next time you watch it. And so let's just say you're attaching your identity. So you see photographs that relate to you and your life that are meaningful and significant to you. You've actually brought to life a gratitude journal, because a lot of the photographs of what you're grateful for. So you've actually got that real, it's almost like the boosting power, but every single time you watch, you see different associations. It's called associative conditioning, different associations to different images before and after each one of your goal statements or your goals, as pictorial illustrations representing what it is that you want to achieve. And you create so many new and different neural connections and neural pathways. You literally have the breakthroughs. It's, you know, Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about getting over yourself. This is how you get over yourself. But unless you have your identity integrated into the experience, it can't happen. It doesn't happen. And so I see a lot of amazing coaches and best-selling authors. They talk about the principles, but they have no way to make it happen for others. And that's what Positive Prime is. And so I must admit, I'm incredibly grateful that I was chosen to receive all of the downloads so that I could work with a team of people for long enough to actually create this platform that's available 24/7 the world over with hundreds of pieces of content. I could have just created Positive Prime sessions and kept them just for my own clients, because I, as part of that journey I'm telling you about, I actually lived in Bali and I ran health retreats in Bali, and people used to come and pay an exquisite amount of money to spend a very precious amount of time with me, and I would put them through an extraordinary transformation program with a whole heap of my friends who are specialists in all sorts of healing arts. And I'm a best-selling author, the legitimate old-fashioned way, when you actually had to sell hundreds of thousands of books in real bookstores long before there was ever printing on demand and minuscule, ridiculous categories on Amazon so that, you know, you could be a best-selling author. So the interesting thing is people used to come to Bali just to find out, how do you actually sell hundreds of thousands of books? My answer is you have to have a distribution strategy. You have to have a distribution strategy. And I had hundreds and hundreds of spas and salons and health retreats as clients, who were all licensees, a bit like franchises. And so I sold boxes and boxes of books in hundreds of different, you know, salons, which meant that it didn't take very long before we had thousands and thousands of I Am Grateful books out there in the marketplace. Anyway, what does that ostensibly mean? Well, on my first unconscious episode, I was driving my car, and interestingly enough, my husband was actually following me because we'd been to a function and we were going home early. It was a Sunday early evening, and he watched as my car veered across oncoming traffic, went down a nature embankment, and I had a head-on collision with the trees. The whole thing unfolded in front of him. And by the time he parked his car, I had narrowly missed in terms of an oncoming collision with a truck, and he was obviously in a state of shock, and he ran to the car and he found me lifeless. No one was to know at that moment in time what had happened to me, but my heart had stopped. And if your heart doesn't pump, you don't have perfusion, which means you don't have oxygenated, nutrient-rich blood flowing around your body. And if you don't have perfusion, none of your organs are working, because they all need that oxygenated, nutrient-rich blood. And so things start to actually go wrong pretty quick. And so your kidneys fail, and it goes on and on and on until your brain fails. He brought me back. He actually rushed me. It was serendipitous and synchronous that I was about 2 minutes from a hospital. We raced into the emergency, and interestingly enough, I'd come to, but I was sick, I was vomiting, and I'd lost my bladder and my bowels. That's kind of what happens when you lose consciousness. So it's not pretty. And they then gave me these injections, because what they thought was that I'd hit my head in the collision and that had caused me to go unconscious. Like, no, that's not the way. But we didn't know that. It took 18 months of complete unknowing, right? With a broken body that had to repair itself. And then only a couple of months later, I fell because I'd gone completely unconscious. On one of the instances, I was actually on a Zoom call with a one-on-one coaching client. I went completely unconscious. They were in North America on the West Coast. They watched. Her father was a doctor. So she actually picked up the phone and said, like, what do you do on Zoom to someone on the other side of the world? You can't ring, like, we don't have 999. We have 000 to ring our ambulance service, right? She's like, what could she do? Except literally watch this woman who was dead on the other, but she didn't know I was. And then all of a sudden I came to. And so the specialists have since told me, neurologists, cardiologists, etc., this autonomic nervous system dysfunction that I have that is actually about my vagus nerve is more like multiple sclerosis or ALS. We call it MND, motor neurons disease. You call it ALS or various other versions of that. And I saw like my entire life flash in front of me like a positive prime session, and I got a very clear message that I had to come back. It was not negotiable, and that I had to share positive prime with the world, because it was actually about bringing about peace on the planet. Because when people are positively primed, they're in a state of being that is about peacefulness. They're not at war with themselves, and therefore won't be at war with others. You know, like hurt people hurt people. You've heard that phrase before, right? So people who usually really and truly love themselves and their lives, they're usually forces for good. And so I was basically playing it pretty small at the time for 18 months. You can't see here, but I have a huge scar. The time I fell, I actually smashed my head on the desk on my way down to the floor, and then smashed my head again and opened up this side of my face and gave myself, you know, hematomas and all sorts of things. And then they actually decided to put this little chip inside my chest. It was like with a nail gun. God, it hurt. They only gave me like local anesthetic, and the nail gun like projectiled this USB sticky thing into my chest so they can monitor my heart 24/7. And that's when they started to notice that my heart was just stopping. And I actually said to a friend, from a spiritual perspective, I feel like I'm powering down and powering back up. You know, when you turn your computer off because it's playing up, right? And I think that my connection to the divine was playing up. And so it was like I was powering down and I was powering back up again. And as a consequence, I've come back with heightened abilities. You know, when I lived in Bali, I certainly was well known as being a very special energy healer. And I get these very strong messages for people. And it's like I'm the conduit for your angels. And I don't know how to describe it. And I didn't talk about it publicly beforehand because I didn't want to be known as a freak, right? You know, I come from a very conservative and traditional family, and all my friends are very conservative and traditional. And I was just like, I am not telling anyone I get messages. I mean, my closest friends, I tell them stuff and they're like, how do you know that? And I said, I don't know. I'm telling you, this is what I'm getting. Do with it what you will. I don't mind. Do nothing, whatever. But sometimes you can't unknow what you know. That might be the point. So anyway, my experience with what we're doing with Positive Prime is we're not funded. I don't have any investors. It's not like I've gone to Silicon Valley and said, hey, this is the most extraordinary thing. Give me $70 million and I'll turn it into a Calm or a Headspace. I actually don't want to do that. I really think that it is so potent, so powerful, and we can't allow anybody to use it for any other purpose other than for good. Now, we have a really beautiful affiliate program. It works really well. We're growing by tens of thousands of people per month. We have a very sophisticated program, just like I rolled out, you know, lithos therapy in the spa industry. I created that certification. I had it approved at the highest levels. It's really well respected and admired internationally. I've done the same with summarizing positive psychology and neuroscience and creating a certification course so that we have people who want their own Positive Prime session on our own platform, and they want us to help to raise them up, edify them, and then present their message to a much larger and growing audience. If you're a really committed coach or author, I mean, I've worked with everyone, including, you know, Jack Canfield. I mean, I've literally actually worked with him, sat down and created the Success Principles Positive Prime session with him for his high-level program. So he actually encourages all the people who do his Train the Trainer program to become Positive Prime. We call them professional leaders. So he encourages those people. And the person who was his global head of training and development, his name's Robert McPhee. And Robert's a friend of mine, and he loves and adores me, and he just loves and adores Positive Prime. And so we've got lots of friends in the industry that recommend Positive Prime, and that's actually how we've grown. So that's it for me. And then I mentioned what actually has happened is that I'm so connected into the quantum field, that the messages that my other than consciousness are working on means that I'm actually also involved in a completely separate project that involves the blockchain and our own token-backed DAO that is seriously $1 billion plus idea. And we are literally birthing it with the greatest team on the planet from all over the world. I want for everyone to be in the place where they get these inspired ideas that means that they can make a greater contribution with their lives in this lifetime while they're alive, right? Given that I'm young, I don't know if any of you have noticed that I'm not the average age for somebody who gets pacemaker. And there are a couple of realities around that. So unless the transhuman movement moves fast, at this stage, they have no way to replace the leads that are anchored into your heart from your pacemaker. So it's easy to change the batteries. They just, do more surgery. They open you up, they change the batteries, they put a different device in. But the problem is really the connection to the leads that go down into your heart. And at this stage, there's no leads removal surgery that's actually successful. And so I have a very confronting truth about the limited time I have here. And it does actually bring about a very different kind of approach to life. And I don't overwork anymore. I don't. I have more playful, fun times. I do more with my family. I do more for my family. Yeah, sure, I'm a driven entrepreneur, but I will not sacrifice myself nor my enjoyment of life for business. Just doesn't and won't happen. It's not worth it, right? So what I can tell you is you have an exquisite tool in your toolbox. You have access to Positive Prime. Use it. I swear to you, it's more special than you can fathom. We have a lot of resources if you want to figure out how does it actually work and what is that formula, right? And we also do have an incredible leadership program if you want to join it. And I would suggest that you do. I would suggest that you go join us on our Facebook page. There are little baby videos that offer a lot of extra kind of training and guidance for you. It's pretty good. All right, so let's go over here to Positive Prime. Look who shows up here. Christine Tiley. Woo! Yeah, she is actually one of our graduates of our professional leaders program. Yeah, you are. You're actually being featured. And so interestingly enough, what we have actually found is as tens of thousands of people actually get added to our Positive Prime community, they get to know that there is this fabulous person named Christine Tiley. Now, of course, they might have zero ability to place who this famous Christine Tiley is, but at least they can click and go and watch her session. By the way, this is an awesome session. Now, the other thing is that there are coaching pearls. So we have 365 days of coaching videos that are around about 3 minutes long. And so this is what I say to people. If the average world-class coach charges $400 an hour, like the average world-class lawyer or accountant or whatever, we actually have over 1,000 minutes of coaching, awesome advice and suggestions here available for you in bite-sized pieces, which is over 18 hours of coaching, which is at $400 an hour is $7,000 worth of actual coaching. And so what I would suggest that you do whilst you have a chance is you go in here and you look at all of the different people who are coaching. Yes, there's Brett D. Scott. Woo! And given that we're on with Christine Tiley, and any one of our professional leaders actually has a chance to be featured here. Oh, look here, Confidence by Christine Tiley. So what I love about this is that we have so many people who are watching these little coaching videos. So they're actually getting to know Christine and hopefully like her and trust her. And then what they might do is they might go up here and they might go, oh, I wonder if Christine has she does. She has a session and then can go and actually watch her Positive Prime session. It's incredible. If you play this and you love this session, you can heart it. Oh, look at that. Imagine that. I've actually hearted Christine Tiley's session. She doesn't know that. She does now. Anyway, so what this means is it's one of my favorites. So if I go over into my sessions, let me just skip this for a second. If I go over into my sessions, I can actually see that Christine's is down here. So I don't actually have to go and search anymore. I can just go to my sessions. We do have an incredible number of promotions that are coming up. You're about to see something that's about 2022 and going through almost like a visioning, designing your life workshop. It's only $49, but it's actually for the product that we gift you, which is what we call a mega mix. And it has many sessions mixed and merged together, so they're combined, so that when you watch this particular huge Positive Prime session, it has flowing through it little bits from so many different sessions that you can actually literally watch like tiny portions of 22 sessions inside, a couple of minutes. I have my own personal super mix, and this is the one that has, 30 sessions or 40 sessions, all mixed into each other. And if I press play, I've heavily personalized this. When I mean that, I mean thousands of photos. Everything that I have ever dreamed of, wished for, wanted, needed is in my personal collection, in my gallery of photos. I upload highlights from all of the functions. I constantly am refreshing. So this is a huge session. It's massive. So it takes quite a long time to load, not forever, but quite a long time. And that's what's actually happening here. And if I just am involved in several different phone calls, I'll have this particular session playing on full screen at speed 1 or 2 for hours during the day, because even at higher speeds, this thing takes hours to get through. But if I want to immerse myself in a really intensive process on a Sunday, I will watch as much of this super mix as I possibly can, because it really gets me into dreaming and visioning. And it's a very strong mindfulness meditation. It's really extraordinary. Now, obviously, because I'm on Zoom, it's taking a long time to load, but I'm patient because I actually know what's just about to happen. I'm about to see 30 or 40 sessions mixed and merged, integrated, combined, and showing me. So I don't have to go and watch 30 different sessions if I want to really, dial up the volume on my life. So does that, I want to see how long this is going to take. Let's sharing, because video and Zoom is chewing my bandwidth, and I live in a rural area in Australia, which means my internet is so slow. It's so much slower than everybody else's on the planet. Alrighty.
Yes, go.
No, what else? Anyone, any questions? That was a lot to take in.
And look, yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot that you've just given everyone to download and digest. But the great thing is we've got Christine, who, I'm sure over the next, what have we got, another 9 weeks to go, I'm sure she's going to share why it is so incredibly powerful, and what she's done to integrate it. I've integrated it, as you know, into my life. I'm not just featured in there. I've used the software to bring different things, and even on the basis of gratitude, it's powerful. It's really, really powerful. I can't emphasize it enough. And it's not because I'm linked to Kim or a part of it. If I didn't know Kim and I didn't know Christine and I didn't know anything, but I just happened to stumble across it, I would be just as excited because I know the power of it. And it's almost like you can't quite quantify until you actually go through and actually apply it yourself and personalize it, as Kim has said. And I know, Jane, you said, where do I get started? Funny enough, there's an actual tab on the left-hand side. As soon as you open it up, it says, get started. And it tells you what to do. There you go. Yeah, get started. And so it'll give you the run through. And funny enough, Jane, that was exactly what I was asking as well. Where do I get started when I first came across it? And so, yeah, Kim's put together something which should make it easy for everyone to understand. But guess what? If you don't understand, just ask. You're in this group, this team, and obviously don't just bombard Christine, bombard me. Because I definitely know a lot about it and definitely will help you. So any questions for Kim? Because, yes, she shared a hell of a lot.
Yes.
Go lead.
Yeah, right. So am I right in thinking that Positive Prime with the flashing images, and it's like an intense vision board, and by paying attention to it, eventually it will enter your subconscious mind. Have I got the grasp right on that?
Well,
you most certainly do, Lee. Let me give you something that's even groovier than that. We go beyond subconscious. I want you to think of an iceberg bobbing in a pool, right? A swimming pool.
Yeah.
And if you pour a lot of pink food dye into the swimming pool, you're going to change the color of the water, correct?
Yeah.
Right. So most people have seen these images of icebergs where the bit above the waterline is actually the conscious mind, and the bit that's below the waterline is the subconscious. And usually that's in proportion much larger than the conscious, right?
I know the exact image.
Okay, awesome. Well, Lee, about 15 years ago, I was doing a couple of keynotes, and I was probably the first person to start really asking lots of others who are, you know, in this industry. But it's not about the subconscious, because you need to be able to access the other than consciousness in order to bring about natural, organic, beautiful change. So you actually need to be swimming in the pink food dye swimming pool. That is the environment of the other than consciousness. Now, most people can't access beyond their subconscious because we as human beings, with our fight and flight mechanism keeping us safe and protected, we don't allow unfamiliar into our existence without rejecting it or resisting it first. So the speed at which you watch the positive prime sessions means that we can bypass, now get ready for this, you bypass in pre-conscious processing the critical and judgment factors of your prefrontal cortex that usually is what stops you from actually changing and keeps you in self-sabotage. It actually keeps you stuck. So you've got to bypass the conscious critical judgment factors of your prefrontal cortex in order for you to actually have new information go into your other than consciousness. You can't do that unless you're in a positively primed state, right? You have to be in a state of flow, because when you're in high beta, your brain's in a state of stress. It can't take it in. When you're in delta, gamma, theta, alpha, you actually can start to take it in. And this is why our scientific research about what's happening in brainwaves is so exciting. And so a positive prime session at the speed at which it transitions is what helps you to access your other than consciousness. And that is actually the gap, right? So change actually happens in the gap. It's beyond subconscious. If you get a little bit too stuck in the subconscious, you don't actually get enduring change. You might get change for a reason. You don't get change for no reason.
Okay. Wow. This is all new information. So, wow, I like it. I like it. I did not know about this. So that's brilliant. So can I just, so we were talking, you mentioned about brain phases. We've got delta, gamma, theta. What was the other?
You have various, but usually people focus on how to tone down high beta. Beta wave thinking is a stressed brain. A stressed
Beta
brain
is
is
stress.
when you're in cognitive overwhelm, you can't make decisions. Do you know they've actually done these tests where they give surgeons these case studies, and when they're in cognitive distress, they literally can't come to an accurate diagnosis. When they are positively primed, they come to an accurate diagnosis faster. Their brain actually just works in a different way. Their mind works with them and for them.
I get it. Yes, of course. They're going with the current instead of against it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. That is good. That's awesome. Sorry. So carry on. Tell me more.
Do you know what, Lee? There are actually quite a few really great videos. I would encourage you to go watch them. I'm very, very open at sharing all of the secrets and the behind the scenes and the what, the really, the why, the how. So what I would suggest to you, because you can see this is my super mix here right now. And you can see that, you know, if I slow this down, I have uploaded lots of photographs of the life that I want to be living in. I'll tell you, the life that I live is pretty magical, isn't it? So that one's mastering magic. That phrase was out of Mastering Magic. We'll see what the next session is. Anita Greaves. Yes, Brett.
Hannah's got a question for you.
Hey.
Oh, sorry, Hannah.
No, that's okay. Someone keeps talking to my dog and I'm like half kind of looking distracted. But I just wanted to ask, so like I do epigenetic coaching. So we like profile people's biology. So I love the fact that it's like hacking hormones because I'm all about that. One of my things though is like, and this is where I just probably more like maybe piece it down the track, but for certain biologies, they're actually more less stressed in beta because they're made for movement. So things like putting that with that, like, so there's certain body types that actually do better in the alpha state. So I just found it really interesting that you were talking about that because we have such generic like studies and science, but now we're like kind of going beyond it. So I'd love to maybe, even if it's not now, talk to you about how that matches together. Because as I said, for me, alpha state doesn't work in turning down the prefrontal cortex. It's actually movement. So yeah, what are your thoughts just off the top of your head?
What I can tell you is precision medicine, what you're actually referring to, is really a place that I work in. I'm actually a part of what they call transformative technologies. And so, Hannah, we are currently working with some people out of Harvard University on, most people have seen the Muse, but that's a little bit of a toy compared to some of the more advanced brainwave headsets these days. You can actually learn which positive prime sessions have you in gamma, right? And once you can access these states, and it's a bit like, and I love that you bring up that different people react differently. Even in heart rate variability, there are some things like lying on a massage table that literally upset people's ability to relax because they cannot lie still for an hour. It actually agitates them more than it relaxes them. I know exactly what you're talking about, right? And so we are getting to the state of the world or the state of the nation where more of these wearable health tech devices will end up guiding all of us on what is best for us. I don't know if you've heard of mouth taping. Well, mouth taping can kill people. So can the Healy vibration machine. It can literally kill people. If you actually are the type of person who has a contraindication to that, right? But there are people who swear by mouth taping whilst they're sleeping. No, it's not some weird sexual, ritual. And it literally changes their brainwaves whilst they're asleep. It changes REM for them. And so what I think that is happening is that there are lots of people who are exploring lots of different ways for what would be equilibrium or harmony for that particular individual. But it doesn't work for all. And that is actually the fascinating thing. You're right, all of the medical research around paracetamol, for example, is around averages. The average person of the average weight of the average age should take 2 and it should work for an average of 4 hours. Yeah, no, none of us are average, right? Some of us way more than others. Some of us are older than others. Some of us have cardiovascular disease or high blood pressure, or like there's 1,000, probably 1,000,000 interactions with will to bring about the result for you, and will it last for 4 hours? And then I've got friends, of course I would, who are naturopaths, who have not taken one drug in any way, shape or form, pharmaceutical drug, in 10 years. And trust me, 2 paracetamols would knock them for a 6 and cause serious damage to their microbiome.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I'm talking about, because we now have the science. Like I have a profiling system where we literally have that science for, obviously, the DNA coding. Hang on, I've got to find where I can see you. We have the DNA coding, and I already know that for my genetic type and my DNA coding that like sitting down when I need to get into parasympathetic is actually the worst thing for my biology. And like you said, that's why we're not generic anymore. And even the studies, as you just said, yeah, they're, people with exercise, like some people are non-responders for the same protocol. So it's amazing. And I think probably where I'd use it is like you can, like certain people even respond to positivity more than others. Other people's biology can stay safer by actually looking for what can go wrong. So I love this for my genetic type particularly because it definitely responds to the oxytocin and those kind of hormones.
You know what? Neuroplasticity is a very powerful thing. I've got to be honest with you. I unfortunately am supposed to be presenting to another group 3 minutes ago, so I have to take my leave. I would love to connect with you all again. And thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks, Kim.